Triple diamond, let's get it up for Greg Duncan.
You guys, you don't think you even went to sleep. You just stayed fired up all night, didn't you? It's going to be the greatest weekend of your entire life. You know all the rest of us are just a warm-up act for the Waylands tonight, right? You know that, right? They're awesome. Okay, I want to cover some things with you this morning. I'm very fired up about this. Look, we've been in this business for 32 years. We've been diamonds for 27, 28 years. And after all that time, the most important thing we have ever seen is making sure that you know why you're doing this. And it's important as you talk to prospects and new people to make sure they know why they're doing it too. So often we get hung up with the how and the what. And I want to spend time this morning talking about one topic, and it's just the why. Why are you doing it? Why do people do that? There's an amazing revered psychologist named Simon Sinek who wrote a book called Start With Why. And I want to talk about that this morning. I want to talk about what he teaches and how he does this. He talks about the fact that great leaders in the world inspire action. And they don't inspire action by knowing details. They inspire action by sharing with you from the heart about why they're excited. You can see this happening with corporations and companies. We look at music in a way we've never looked at music before. The concept of an iPod or being able to record your music in iTunes and being able to buy one song at a time. In the old days when we had these great big LPs, you don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? What's an LP? Okay, get this. This is how high tech we were. You used to take a giant piece of plastic, scratch wiggly lines in it, and put a needle on it. And when the needle wiggled a lot, it would make noise, and we go, whoa, listen to the depth of that. So awesome. Cracks me up. I love it. So Randy Sears, one of our diamonds' daughter, Ashley, was up in her grandmother's attic one day, brings down this big LP and goes, Dad, look how big CDs used to be. This is huge. Unbelievable. And so we always complained that we used to have to buy a complete album with 15 songs just to get one or two good songs. Time magazine years ago, they always every year do the man of the year, the woman of the year, the person of the year, and they put them on the front of Time magazine. About 7 years ago, what they had on the front of Time magazine was a reflective surface, a mirror. So when you looked at Time, you saw yourself. And the point was, the person of the year is you. All this technology has allowed us to make you the center of everything. And don't you love when billionaires fight for our attention? Don't you love when Microsoft and Samsung, Kia, and they're all catering to you? And the reason why these businesses are succeeding, because you're the why, making your life easier, do everything easier. It's not you catering to the device or catering to the technology caters to you. The reason this works is because you and I are more moved, we're more motivated by the why than we are the what and the how. And so often we ask people, what do you do? Or they try to show you a product and they show you what the product does. But what moves people is when they have a why of something like that. And this Simon Sinek defines it as this. Your outer cortex, the most recent brain in the history of evolution, the last thing that was developed that makes humans so unbelievable is the logic of our cortex. Our outer brain, it's kind of like the circle of the middle's the why, then the how, and then the what. And all the what of our life, all the logic, all the rationale, our ability to do language, they show you the what and they show you the how. But a lot of them miss the why. And that's why if we're really smart, what we'll do is we'll cater to that. When you're building the business, you want to aim at that why. You want to go to the heart of why those people want it. It's critically important. And your brain is structured that way. Your outer rational brain is your cortex. Your inner limbic brain doesn't have any language attached to it. It has emotion, passion, and gives you a gut response. That's because the reason you can't attach words to it is because there is no language in the middle part of your brain. But that's what drives you and pushes you forward. And you see that successful people take advantage of this. Let me give you an example. Cadillac Corporation, despite all the problems that General Motors has created a car called the CTS that has been phenomenally successful, amazingly successful. In fact, in 2013, this year, their sales of that car are higher than they've ever been for any Cadillac in 23 years. And let me tell you why I think that has. This started about 5 years ago. Let me tell you who Cadillac was. Before you punks were born, you know what I'm talking about. You're over 39, right? Cadillac was the car. I mean, everybody would say, oh, it's a Cadillac of this, it's a Cadillac of that. It was always the highest quality. Men in their 40s and 50s and 60s who were accomplishing financially, their goal was to drive a Cadillac. It was the ultimate car, right? Nobody drove a BMW. Those were the ugliest cars there ever were back in those days when you were growing up, right? Audis were even uglier, if you can imagine being uglier than a BMW was. And Mercedes-Benz was nothing back then. It didn't have any looks or anything else. Cadillac was the car to have. Well, the problem is Cadillac rested on its laurels and just rested on that concept, and those 40, 50, 60-year-olds became 50, 60, 70, and 60, 70, 80, and started dying off, and so their brand started to die off. And BMW actually designed a car that was halfway good looking, and Audi designed cars that were good looking, and Mercedes, and they emerged, and Cadillac was falling apart. 5 years ago, in 2008, Cadillac hired a 27-year-old girl who was an absolute genius in marketing. They said, we want to hire you to create a whole new market for us with Cadillac. And watch what she did. This is incredible. She says, that's fine, but you're going to pay me, and I'm going to leave the company for a year, and I'm going to go do research, and I'll come back at the end of the year. And she went out and talked to thousands of people who had not bought Cadillacs, but had bought BMWs, Mercedes-Benzes, and Audis, and asked them why. Why did you buy this car? Why did you not buy a Cadillac? And what could Cadillac have changed to have gotten you emotional about buying a Cadillac? She asked them all, and the answers weren't fun. They weren't easy. But the answers weren't, oh, well, their statistics were better there. It wasn't the rational thought. Even though these were men, it wasn't the rational thought of a man, oh, well, it goes from 0 to 60 in this amount of time, and it's got this amount of tread, and it's got this amount. It wasn't any of those things. It's, I like how I feel when I own a BMW. I like the feeling that it gives me to drive a Mercedes-Benz. I like the feel of owning an Audi. And so she came back and said to Cadillac, not only are we changing our advertising, we're changing our whole car. And I don't know if you remember in 2008, but one of the most incredible, iconic ads in the history of America was run by Cadillac in 2008. It featured an actress who had just finished her 30s, was in her early 40s, named Kate Walsh. Sultry-looking redhead, very popular on TV. People knew who she was. And they showed a Cadillac ad, and you just can't believe this was a Cadillac ad because it didn't show an old stodgy guy in a box driving down the street. It showed a fast, exciting car. MTV type of things were boom, boom, boom. They were going back and forth, and they focused in the beginning on Kate's face. And, lights were flashing by. She's driving through a tunnel. It was very MTV-ish kind of thing. And then they'd focus on the wheels spinning going on. I mean, there was no slow, long picture of a car driving or parking. It was fast. And Kate started having a conversation. And this is really great what she said. The question is, when you turn your car on, does it return the favor? Oh, such a great line. For goodness sakes. The people bought that car like crazy. Cadillac CTS is one of the most successful cars ever in the history of cars now. Despite General Motors, it's gone on to be one of the greatest things out in the car world. Huge records, even as of today, one of the greatest records ever, because they changed to why you drive a car instead of the what. They recaptured what they were, redefined what they were, but they went for the why. They went for a feeling. They weren't listing all the features. They were talking about why. Because when you've been successful and you've accomplished a lot, you want something that represents how you feel instead of, oh, what can I get for, payments of about $195 a month. And they were looking at people that defined themselves as something. Well, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for people who want to define their life and go somewhere. And all the details aren't going to do it. It's the why that's going to do it. It's important to do that. Let me give you one more example. Martin Luther King. Totally different example, but perfectly down the road. Martin Luther King has inspired generations of people, one of the most iconic figures, influential figures in the history of the world. Why is he influential? He wasn't the world's greatest orator. There were a lot of orators in the world at that time in the 1960s during the civil rights action. There were other orators just as great as him. He wasn't the only person in the world that had suffered injustices before the civil rights. He wasn't the only black man that had gone through things. What was it about what he did? He had this incredible gift that he shared with you a passion. He shared with you a vision. He shared with you a dream of where he wanted to go. And way back in 1963, the exact date was summer of 1963, 250,000 human beings assembled on the Mall of America in Washington, D.C. to hear him give on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial one of the most impassioned speeches in the history of the world, called the I Have a Dream speech. 250,000 people. Did not have cell phones, did not have websites, didn't get personal invitations, and 250,000 people showed up. How in the world do you inspire 250,000 people to come together in one place in an age where they didn't have it on Facebook and couldn't Twitter it? How do you do that to have that happen? How do you make that kind of thing? No tweets available. How does everybody know? Well, because that leader inspired people who inspired people and inspired people, and they had a network that spread because the message was so passionate. Here's what's important. How many of those people came to Washington, D.C. because of Martin Luther King? And the answer is 0. They came because of themselves. They had a dream that he could change the world. Martin Luther King thought that there were 2 powers in the world, a higher power and man's power, and that when man's power and man's laws did not line up with the laws of the universe and the laws of a higher power, that there will be injustice in the world. Until man's laws finally matches a higher power's laws, that's the only time we'll finally have justice. And that's something people could get behind, of every race, creed, color in the entire world. 25% of the people in the Washington Mall that day weren't black, they were white. But they had this dream about justice. And by the way, he gave the I have a dream speech, not the I have a plan speech. When you get these politicians that go, I've got a 12-point plan, I've got a 5-point plan, it's yawn central. It's like, you lost me at hello, how about goodbye? You know, share with me why you should be president. Share with me why I want to be part of your life. Share with me why I want to be part of your team. Share with me why I should have a dream. Share with me why my life is going to change. And we've got this fantastic book, an absolute fantastic CD by Robert Kiyosaki called Business of the 21st Century. And I ask most people what that's about, and they go, well, it's about network marketing. Really? Have you read the book? Have you listened to the CD? Because it's not about network marketing. That's the what and the how. That concept is about the why. The center focus of that whole thing is the cash flow quadrant. That's the key to it. And what is Kiyosaki is a master at this. He talks about why your traditional forms of occupations are not going to give you what you want. He talks about why you're so dissatisfied, about why you're unhappy. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're not doing them in the right quadrants, you're not going to be happy. It's not going to give you what you want. He talks about why you need to change your mindset about how money works. You need to change your mindset about how you make income, because you don't pursue an income or a job because of how it works or what it is. You pursue because of why, because it gives me the life and the dream I have. We ask our high school seniors the wrong questions. We ask 18-year-old boys, what do you think you want to do with the rest of your life? What? Not why, how, what. We should ask them, why do you want to go do something? Why do you want to live your life? Tell me your passion in life. No, we say what? We try to put them in a box and define them. You want to be a gardener, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, what do you want to do? And you're asking 18-year-old boys what they want to do. They don't know what they want to do. They can't even figure out how their life works, let alone what they want to do with the rest of their life. You're asking an 18-year-old boy, what are you doing asking 18-year-old boys this? So they get confused and think they're supposed to pick what they do, and they try to define their life by what they do rather than why they do it. I don't build Amway because I like Amway. Let me tell you, I don't build it because it makes sense. I don't build it because I enjoy the what and the how. I'll tell you why I build it. Because of one woman named Greg Duncan and 2 kids. And the chance to be with my friends, and the chance to be free. That's why I do it. I don't care if it's Amway. I love going to people and doing a second look meeting and find some guy that crossed his arms all night long, and I pick him out afterwards. You know, when his wife's dragging him up there with his potential sponsor, and he's like, man, this is the last place I want to be. And I look at him and go, hey, you were paying attention to me all night long. I said, what do you do for a living? You know, I want to engage him, and you don't know how to win friends and influence people. What's the most important thing to people? I said, what's your name? Oh, my name's Bob. Okay, Bob. And I say Bob 2 or 3 times. So I'm practicing how to win friends and influence people. I ask him what he does. What's the second most important thing in how to win friends and influence people? Show that you're interested in them. Talk about them. So I say, Bob, so what do you do? And Bob starts relaxing his arms because I'm talking about Bob. And I ask Bob, what does he do for a living? I say, Bob, here's a question. I hope you didn't misunderstand me tonight, okay? My loyalty is to my wife, because I'm assuming you love your wife. I love my wife. My loyalty is to my kids and to my friends. But here's my question. What will get me with my kids and with my wife and with my friends the most often? What do? You're a truck driver? Bob, I'll dump this. Should I quit this and be a truck driver like you? Oh, if Bob's a little slow, trust me, his wife is not. And before Bob can even comprehend the words that just crossed his membrane in his ears, his wife goes, oh no, you don't want to do what Bob does. There's no way he's ever going to have the life you do. And I went, Bob, is she right? Yeah, that's true. Because it doesn't matter if he likes I can't picture me doing Amway. It doesn't matter if you can picture it. It doesn't matter if you like it. I don't care if you hate sponsoring. I don't care if you hate running volume. If it gives you the life you want, who cares? You do things because of why it gives you a life, not because of what it functions and how it works. That's what's important. And you need to know that. I've said this since I was an Emerald 29 years ago. I would shovel wet horse manure into a wet paper bag. I say that because it's the most disgusting thing I can imagine doing. I would take the lowest status, nobody likes it kind of occupation and do it. Listen to me. If I could get paid 10 times the income, the why I do it is to have a life. I don't want my status to come from my occupation. I want my status to come from the life I get from my occupation. And if I can get that shovel and wet horse manure into wet paper bags, sign me up. I'm all in. Absolutely. You know, I love asking, people, so what do you get from what you do? I love going to a social situation and ask people, so what do you get from what you do? And they're confused. Well, I'm a lawyer. I didn't ask him what he does. So what do you get from what you do? And he goes, well, I work for one of the largest law firms in Southern California. Yeah, but what do you get from what you do? He says, I have an office like on the top floor and we got a view of the ocean and stuff like that. And I say, yeah, but what do you get from what you do? I get to be home all day long and do whatever I want to do with the people I love to do it with. And too many people are getting status over the wrong kinds of things, for goodness sakes. It's not what you do, it's why you do it. And we've got to get that across to prospects from the very beginning. And that's why I like Kiyosaki so much. And so when I give them a book or give them that CD, I talk about, let me tell you what you're going to hear here. And because people are taught wrong, they're taught to look for, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with the rest of your life, Ken? You're pretty good at this. Have you ever thought about being that? Stop that. Stop worrying about the how and the what. Why do you want to do it? What's the life you picture? Where would you like to be? And that's why you get into a vehicle. Maybe Amway's not your vehicle, but we got to figure out where you want to go first, and then you pick your vehicle. That's what they do wrong. Figure out where you want to go, then we'll find a vehicle to take you there. Do you want to walk or take a bike or a plane? Well, don't you have to know where you're going first? If you're going to that table, I don't recommend you take a plane. That's stupid, right? If you want to go to New York, I recommend you get on an airplane, okay? I mean, you got to know where you're going first. You got to figure that out first. That's the important thing. You got to figure out the why of what you want to do. Then you pick the what, the how that matches it along the way. And that's what's so great about him. He goes through and I say, look, when you listen to this CD, when you read this book from Robert Kiyosaki, first of all, you got to understand who he is. He's one of the most successful multimillionaires in America. He teaches people how to build businesses of their own. You've probably heard about his most famous book, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad concept. I'm sure you've heard about that concept. People don't know how to think, so what you're doing is you're asking them questions, asking them leading questions they don't know the answers to, but you're never going to be guilty of, I can't tell you. You're telling them everything you can. They can't keep up with you. And so you've probably heard of him, right? They're like, yeah, sure, you bet, yeah. But I don't know if you've heard of his most recent book, Business of the 21st Century, and he talks about how people ought to look at how they make money and realizes it fitting the why of what they're looking for. The most important thing I want you to look for when you read this book or listen to the CD is watch this thing called the cash flow quadrant. I don't know if you ever heard about that. Have you heard of the cash flow quadrant? Well, they're kind of like, nobody's going to accuse you of holding back. You are so far ahead of them, it's not funny. So they're not going to think, well, he wouldn't tell me anything. You want them to go home and study this. I want them to study that CD. I want them to study that book. I want you to learn this. I want you to understand the two ways we were taught to make money and why they will always be unsatisfying to us and not give us what we want. And I want you to understand the two ways we should make money so that you control your life. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like Robert. You don't have to like my lifestyle. But I'll bet you like your lifestyle that you get to choose. The biggest thing that motivated Lori and me was not that we wanted to be in control. We just hated everybody else being in control. I hate when MasterCard's in control of my life. I hate when the bank is in control of my life. I hate when a boss is in control of my life. I didn't want to be in control. I just hated everybody else being in control. I just wanted to finally make my own choices because that's what we wanted when we wanted it. And I say that to a prospect. And nobody's ever talked to them that way before. And it's very important. Look, I don't want to just, are you interested? You need to help these people how to think. So don't just hand them a CD. Don't just hand them a book. Help them understand what they're looking for. And the point of that book is not the what and the how. It's not network marketing and how network marketing works. It's why would you look at something different? And the best way that you can do that with the people in your business and with those people is I give them a homework assignment. Say, you need to go home and you need to take a look at where you want to be 2, 5, and 10 years from now. Debbie Shores did this with us. Debbie was a nurse, worked at the hospital I was at, and I was excited about a business, but I hadn't been talking to her about it. She goes, I know you're doing something. I know you're doing something. I got to find something else. What are you doing? I didn't go, oh, thanks for asking. It's Amway. Whoa. She wasn't anywhere close to being ready. You guys have got to make sure people are prepared. You've got something really valuable, and until somebody appreciates it, I have not shown the plan to 40 people yet, and I've talked to hundreds of people. But I got to tell you, we sponsored almost every single one of those, and we got some pretty good legs and some pretty good business out of that. Some people quit and left us legs, and those people quit and left us legs. We got over 100 bonus checks going out because of all that kind of business. That's amazing what you can have from all that. But we were picky. I wanted people who got it and appreciate it, and that's why I said, Debbie, look, you're not going to be interested in this. Here's what I want you to do. Go home and do something you've never done. Go home and set goals. They said less than 3% of people have set goals, right? And sat down and said, where do I want to be? I said, I want you to write down a piece of paper where you want to be in 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years. Write it down. I mean, everything. If you don't know where to start, go through a week. What do you do on Mondays? What would you like to do different on Mondays? What do you do on Tuesdays? What would you like to do different? Go through every day of the week. Go through the seasons. What do you do every summer? What do you wish you could do every summer? What do you do every winter? What do you wish you could do every winter? Start writing those kinds of things down. Where do you live? What kind of cars do you drive? What kind of charities do you support? What kind of time do you spend with your family? Write down all those things and describe the life you'd like to have in 2, 5, and 10 years. Now, only 3% of people do that. Now, I've never seen the statistics, but Greg and I gregorized it. I think less than 3% of that 3% ever look at that and say, okay, and how much would that cost? I said, Debbie, that's what I want you to do. I want you to write down how much would that life cost. So you have the dream life, how much does it cost, and add up the total. And then multiply by 2.5. Why? Because you should save or give away 20% of your income. You're going to pay 40% of it in tax, so 60% of everything you make is going to go away. Your life's only going to be lived on 40% of your income, okay? So whatever your life's going to cost, you have to multiply by 2.5 because that's only 40%. To get to 100% of what you make, that's what you got to come up with. That too fast? You got it. Okay. So take your dreams, add them up, multiply by 2.5. That's what you have to make. I said, Debbie, you're going to get a number. Match that number to what you make now as a nurse. If you make more money as a nurse than you'll ever have to make to have your dreams, then you don't need to change anything. It's stupid to get together with me. That's why I don't think it's worth your time. But if the number for your dreams is bigger, like way bigger, than your income as a nurse, one of two things has to happen. You need to stop dreaming these stupid, asinine dreams that will never happen for you, or you need to get serious and change the vehicle on how you make a living. One of those two. Debbie had seen nothing. Debbie knew nothing. She knew how, know what, nothing. She calls me late at night, rude, after people should have been in bed. She calls me and goes, Greg, I did what you said. Oh my gosh, my life is horrible. I'll do anything you've got because I have no choice. That's the why. The how and the what doesn't matter. And that's where we want people. We have taught this for decades. This is so important. Make sure you're teaching people the why. Make sure they understand why they're doing this, what they're looking for, and where they want to go. Guys, most prospects have never been taught how to do that. They've never been taught that, look, don't pick a job that sounds fun. That's a hobby. Well, I enjoy doing this. Great. Get rich and do that as a hobby. You're also going to find out that, whatever you think's cool, it's cool, but it's not cool 8 and 10 hours a day and 5 and 6 days a week for 40 stinking years of your life. Nothing is that cool, for goodness sake. So treat it as a hobby, and you're going to find out you change hobbies a lot. So go make your living and your lifestyle by something that makes sense. Shelving wet horse manure into wet paper bags, if that's what it takes, and go pursue any dang hobby you want to. You ain't going to stick with one hobby for 40 years, 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. You're not going to do it. And that's the whole point. You want to have the ability and the freedom to have the choice. People are not taught how to do that. They don't know how to do that. You need to help these people do something. You have to help them walk through the process of thinking how to look at their life. They need to change their mindset. Stop talking to people who say, man, I really hate my job. Really? There's a need, want, desire. Want to see Amway? Stop. Stop doing that. What you have to offer is too significant. What you have to offer is too awesome, too destiny changing. Until those people are properly prepared, you are doing them and you and this business an injustice. Start treating this the way it deserves to be treated. When you do that, what happens is you learn to love this business, because this business gives you a life. And because it gives you a life, it gives other people life. And there is nothing more rewarding than seeing a husband and wife in tears across the table because you changed their life. That's what motivated me to go into medicine, and then I found out medicine didn't do that. But in this business, people wanted me to know their children. They wanted me to be involved in their lives. They wanted me to help change them. And so what happens is your work becomes your life, becomes your vocation, becomes your mission becomes your destiny. And now people are confused. Are you working? Are you living? What are you doing? Because the two blend together. Let me end with a quotation from James Mishler. This is a great thing about that. This is the art of living. The art of living. The masters in the art of living make little distinction between their work and their play, leaving others to decide whether they're working or they're playing. Come play with us. We love you. God bless.